And BYU's 5-0. By the way, Steve Young's going to join Wise Guys next week. We look forward to that.
And we wondered, okay, can football see, like this has been such an amazing summer with news about recruits. And now here comes football. And it's like, man, wouldn't it be great if football could surprise some people and just come out and play great?
Yeah.
How about 5-0 and nationally ranked? Nobody had that on their bingo card, including me and you.
Yeah, no one. No one.
Honestly, I thought that the most likely loss was the home game against Kansas State. They obliterated Kansas State.
So let me ask you a personal question. On Sunday, when the AP Top 25 poll came out, and you saw that BYU had jumped Utah, how did that make you feel?
Really, really good. Maybe like
I was just staring at it, just going,
borderline
could
great.
there have been a better weekend for Cougar
borderline
Nation?
Great. So, and here's the thing. BYU, the reason I think they moved up so much is because their wins are so legit. Did you see what SMU did again?
Got a Florida State.
They blew Florida State off the field and could not be stopped on offense. The week after the BYU game, they put 66 on the board against TCU from our league.
Yeah.
TCU.
Crazy.
And
the same field.
And then look what Kansas State did last week.
Yeah,
They blew Oklahoma State off the field. Earl Carr says, hey, Dave and Blaine, honestly, if you both told me before the season BYU would be 5-0 at this point going into their first bye, I would have called you crazy.
Yeah.
He says, when I saw the rankings and we were ahead of Utah, almost a spiritual moment.
Why is it that? Did you see Brett McMurphy's report today?
Yeah, I saw that
Brett
projection.
McMurphy, who's a friend of ours through BYU TV, he projects BYU and Notre Dame in the Pop-Tarts Bowl on December 28th in Orlando. The payout for the Pop-Tarts Bowl is $6 million. That would be the richest bowl game in BYU history.
You've been talking about Pop-Tarts Bowl ever since the Cheez-It Bowl went away.
I know, because I like that name.
I like the
Pop-Tarts.
Cheez-It Bowl, but it's not there anymore.
It's so McMurphy comes out with his picks after each week. And, he's had BYU not in.
Right.
And he had BYU in the low of low bowls. Mm-hmm. And now he's got him in the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So we're trending in the right direction. So that is awesome.
So now Christian Argyle says, Dave, I've listened to enough of this podcast to find out you have a certain disgust for the Utes. Is there a story there?
No, it's not a disgust. It's just we grew up with Cougs. And you can't grow up with both.
That's true.
You're this, a lot of people say, well, I cheer for both. And okay. But you know what? You go to school, you're loyal to your...
Yeah.
If I went to Utah, you know what? I'd be loyal to the Ute. So the Cougs beat Baylor 34-28. They led 31-14 at halftime and held on. 5-0 for the fifth time since 2001, first time since 2021. And BYU, the only team in the nation with 3 P4 victories. How about that?
That's pretty impressive. The only 5-0 team in the Big 12, by the way.
Yeah, and Jake Retzlaff is one of 5 quarterbacks with over 1,200 yards passing and 150 yards rushing in the country.
Yeah, and he's playing pretty well. Couple of turnovers this week, which we wish they could have back. But the type, it's interesting because when we had him on our post game and interviewed him, the one was a tip ball. You hate those. And by the way, I've had those. And when that happens, as soon as it gets tipped, the whole world goes into super slow-mo. Like the ball seems like it's in the air for 30 minutes while you're waiting for it just to hit the ground and then somebody picks it off. So he can do a better job of recognizing that in front of him. That's a tough one. The other one, I thought, man, where is he throwing the ball? But he told us the receiver zigged when he thought he was going to zag. So he thought that receiver was going to turn out. So he let him out and the receiver turned in. Those things happen.
Yeah, and then the Baylor kid made a diving catch.
Unbelievable play, right?
Yeah.
And so there were some plays on offense that Baylor made that you and I and the gang doing the show just kept looking at each other going, okay, that sometimes you just got to give credit and go, wow, that was an amazing catch. That was good coverage, but that was an amazing catch. Baylor's receivers, man, when they got a little hot and that quarterback got hot, they were making some incredible plays. Can BYU, can they keep that edge? That's a big question. It's a hard thing to do, but they've got to do it. Okay?
Here's what we liked from the football game on Saturday, and see if you agree. I think you probably will. Back-to-back defensive stops when it mattered most down the stretch. Jacob Robinson on a 4th down play, and then Crew Wakeley, next possession, got the game-sealing interception.
Do you want to know? I'm going to give you a little behind the scenes that you're only going to get here. We might talk about it on AFR tomorrow, but the play they ran on the interception was a defensive call by Jay Hill on a defense that they've been practicing all year in every practice and have never used. Not on film. So Kansas, so Baylor's quarterback, this is something they have never seen. He ran a 3-deep man under where he took the safeties and played them all the way to the sideline, put the nickel in the middle of the field and played man under. They had never shown that on film or any time in that game. And he was saving it for when he needed a big play. He dialed it up, made the quarterback make a misread, threw it out there thinking it was too deep, and Crew Wakeley just swallowed it up.
That's awesome.
How about that call?
That's great.
That's what we got calling those defensive plays in Jay Hill.
He's got it going on.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And Crew Wakeley, by the way, was phenomenal in this game. He had a sack and he had that interception. But he also, because I was watching the film to get ready for tomorrow's show, he was in the right spots all game long. He played a phenomenal game. I think that was the best game Crew Wakeley's ever played as a BYU Cougar. It's pretty impressive. That was pretty fun. You know who else
That's
played
good because we had him on the pregame show, and we had him on the postgame show, and so it was a big Wakeley day.
Do you know who else I think played the best game of the year?
Who?
For him, Tyler Batty.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal in the run game. And there were so many times when he was where he was supposed to be and bounced the running back to somebody else and they made a tackle. Like, he was so assignment sound and so good in this game. So Crew is a little more obvious because of the pick and the sack, but he was so good. Tyler Batty's not as obvious because he didn't have a bunch of sacks and a bunch of tackles for loss. But I'm going to tell you, that may be the best game Tyler Batty's played this year. So kudos to those two guys for being great.
We were talking about what we liked in that big win over Baylor. How about the quick start and the creative play calling in the first half? And what fueled the play calling was 2nd and 4 instead of 2nd and 9. Right. Or 3rd and 3 instead of 3rd and 8. And we saw that throughout the first half, and Baylor had no answers.
Yep. They came out of the chutes at 10 o'clock body clock time in the morning with a great, beautiful game plan on both sides of the ball. We also love that Darius Laster had 8 catches for 120 yards. They targeted him. Now we got to get Chase and Darius both targeted about 10 times each. So Paul Lacey says, K-Pop said that the last defense call was made by Coach Guilford. Coach Guilford suggested it. It's like, hey, how about we do this? This is,
But who's up in the box?
Yeah, Jay is the one that calls the play. Yeah. So I'll tell you this. Do you remember that that Kalani said on the fake punt, this is an unbelievable call by K-Pop, right? Which it was. They've been working on it. But guess who designed that entire fake punt, and they've been working on it all year? That's Jay Hill's fake punt design. He put that in. So
listen, Jay's got his hands in all over the place.
Yes, he does.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a few offensive calls going in there.
Yeah, no, I know.
As well. Now, here's what we didn't like. We didn't like those 2 second-half interceptions, whether they were miscommunications or just flukes. We didn't like them.
Well, and they led to those 2 interceptions were kind of an indicator of that second half. Not enough time on the field for the offense in the second half. Yeah. Too many quick possessions, including the second to the last possession, which was 15 seconds long, or the last possession. 15 seconds. Come on. I realize they use timeouts. You got to go get a first down.
Absolutely.
At the end of that game and close that game out. So we didn't like that.
Those picks kept Baylor in.
Right.
And kept them all with a chance. Bears had 324 passing yards. We hadn't seen that number this season. We didn't like that.
Because BYU's been one of the top 15 teams in the country in pass yards allowed.
And it was interesting. Batty on the postgame show on BYU TV said afterwards that, we prepared all week for the run because that's what Baylor does.
Right.
And this guy came out throwing one. They got behind early, and they just threw the whole game.
Right. And here's the thing. Remember, this is a quarterback that just became a starter 2 weeks ago. Wasn't the starter at the beginning of the year. It was Finn at the beginning of the year. And this is a Baylor team that not just this year, but go back as long as Dave Aranda's been the coach. They've been a run first, establish the run, dominating run, play action RPO team. So a little bit of an adjustment when the team comes out. And the guy that was the backup quarterback last year that had transferred from Mississippi State starts throwing BBs all over the place. Yeah. A little bit of an adjustment, right? The good news is they got it dialed in by the end and got the stops they needed to get. But yeah, a little bit disappointing. And they're great coaches in this league. And they're going to come with little adjustments every week. And not only that, they're going to come with adjustments in the middle of a game. So,
and there was the second half, and Kalani addressed it at the end of his news conference today because he didn't like it too much. So this assumption that BYU was playing not to lose and going way conservative on offense in the second half, and a couple of those thoughts, and they're legit discussion points. David Woodruff says second half illustrated how fine a line it is when a couple of missed plays makes the difference between 28 first half points and a 3-point second half performance.
So true, David.
And you can only do so many kinds of plays, but in the second half they had 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 9s.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, there were a couple of runs on 3rd and 8 where you're like, gee, did we just give up on the possession? Yeah. And maybe we did, but Kalani made the point. He goes, maybe we should have been more conservative. We did a fake punt. We threw on those 2 third downs that got picked.
Right.
He goes, I guess we could have handed off and actually gone conservative.
Yeah.
But when you look at 3 points after the explosive first half, and we'd seen that pattern before, and it's easy for fans to go, what the heck? We're just hanging on now instead of going out and defining our destiny like that first half performance.
Dave Aranda is he was the D coordinator for the national champ LSU team. Like, he is known as a phenomenal defensive guy, and he's a defense coordinator. So BYU goes out in that first half, and they have their way. And you can bet Dave Aranda went in at halftime and said, listen, guys, here's some things that we're going to do differently. And we're going to make these changes, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to shut these guys down second half. This is what we're going to do on offense. When you're ahead, you don't make changes at halftime. You just have to try to anticipate what they might do. But then what you have to do, and this is where BYU's got to get better, you have to watch for a couple, and you may get stymied for a couple series, and then you have to go, okay, this is the change they've made. Let's make these changes on the fly and try to counter that. The league is too good. You're not typically going to run away from people and just stay running away. Everybody's going to have some type of a surge, and it's a matter of you counter-adjusting more quickly. Yeah, so that's what you've got to do. So,
hey, Kalani did say today there were no season-ending injuries on this team. Connor Pay said it's going to be out a little while, so probably not Arizona.
Yeah, Harry's fine.
Harrison Taggart is supposed to be back. LJ Martin will be back. All the running backs are supposed to be back for Arizona.
Harry's just got a stinger.
Yeah. So they missed him when he went out.
You get hit on that nerve, right? And when you get hit on that, like, your arm goes numb. And he was very, very upset they didn't let him go back in the game. But what they do is they do a test because they want to make sure that that nerve, like, it kind of numbs the nerve, that you get the full strength back. So they do like a squeeze kind of a test. Yeah. And unless you can test out, they're not going to send you back in, because here's the worry. If you don't have full function of that and you go back in, you might not get your arm up to make a test. You might get in a weird position and injure yourself. So they wouldn't let him go back in. He wanted to go back in. He'll be fine by Arizona.
Good, because they need him right there in the middle.
He's phenomenal. But don't think that didn't hurt not having him for almost 3 quarters.
The center and one of your big guys at linebacker.
Connors is, we saw him in a boot going off, so his is a little more serious. I like that Kalani says it's not season injury, but if he doesn't play in Arizona, Connor Pay is not only a great player and very physical and sets the tone. He's a phenomenal leader. We had Connor on this show, and it's just, you and I marveled at what his poise and his leadership. They're going to really, really miss, for however long he's out, they are absolutely going to miss Connor's leadership on that field.
Yeah, for sure.
And here's the other thing. BYU's only about 8 guys on the front that you can kind of play without a major drop off. And remember, they lost Lapawahu for part of that game, and then he came back in. So that was good to see him back in the game. If you are missing Connor, and you can't really afford to have many more injuries on that offensive line and still produce at a high level.
So it's a good time to have a bye week. Indiana's in the house. Indiana, good to have you with us. Let's talk about your 3 keys to beating Baylor.
Yeah.
Riley Nelson's going to join us in just a few minutes here on the Wise Guys. Your key number 1 was to win the turnover battle, and it was 2-2.
For a while there, I was really worried that they weren't even going to be even on the turnover battle, and BYU's record when they're negative in turnover margin is not good. And so the fact that they got it back to even, they end up winning. They win when they're even or the record when they're plus is remarkable.
So we'll call that a scratch.
Yeah, we're going to call that a scratch. We're not going to give them a check, but we're going to give them a scratch.
The second one was take what the defense gives. They had 31 points first half.
They did. They came out and they were really creative. I loved it.
And the third was no big plays over the top. The longest play of the day for Baylor was 34 yards.
Yeah, and when you ask me for my keys for Arizona next week, that's going to be my number 1 thing. Arizona, if you watch them in the Utah game, they make a living on big time plays, right? That's what they do. And so they're I don't see Arizona driving the ball down the field systematically and beating BYU.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have that same key. I'm giving them a nice check against
give them a check
against Baylor, and they're going to need to have that one be a check against Arizona as well.
So thank you for watching The Wise Guy.
If you like what you're watching, you can help us out by subscribing and hitting that notification button.